Hi guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today we are going to be talking about what I would use if I was starting to crochet again. So this is a beginner friendly video and what you would need to start crocheting. Now before we get too far into this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more crocheting content. So if I was going to start crocheting again, honestly, I would not start with plushy yarn. I do not recommend starting with fuzzy, thick yarn for anyone who is just learning to crochet. It is really difficult to find your stitches, count your stitches. It can be a mess, but if you're feeling like challenging yourself, go for it. I'm not going to stop you from that. But I would recommend either an acrylic yarn or a cotton yarn to start with. Here is an example of cotton yarn. You can see it's really thin. It is really easy to count your stitches with cotton yarn. I don't have an acrylic yarn with me, or I would show you guys that as well. But the cotton and acrylic yarns are just a lot easier to count stitches with. In addition, it's also a lot easier to see if you miss a stitch or you mess up somewhere. It's a lot easier to see in the thinner yarns than it is the thicker yarns, and that is why I recommend it for beginners. The brand for this is Yarn Inspirations. It's sugar and cream. I believe you can order it online. Most Walmarts carry it. Joann's and Michael's do as well. As far as hook size goes, really just depends on what type of yarn you're working with. If you're working with a smaller yarn, you're definitely going to be using a smaller hook. It usually tells you on packaging what size hook you're going to need for what type of yarn you're using. Generally, I use an 8mm hook for all of my thicker yarn. For smaller yarn, I use either a 5 or a 6, but it really just depends on what you're comfortable with and also what the packaging says. Now let's get into essentials that I keep in my little tool bag. So for starters, I keep multiple different hook sizes just depending on the project, whether I need to size down or size up my hooks. You can see here I have a plastic hook with a rubber handle, 2 metal ones, and then a full plastic hook. Personally, I think that the metal hooks are a lot easier to crochet with, so if you're beginning, I would definitely recommend a metal hook versus a plastic hook. I just feel like sometimes the plastic hooks do not pull yarn through the way you want them to, and it just makes it really hard to flow smoothly when you're crocheting. Next, I keep these little plastic bendable needles for any time I am sewing or tying things off. I have a couple different sizes of these. They are really helpful to have, especially just when you're closing the bottom of your work off. So much easier than using a crochet hook to go back through your stitches to hide the tail of the yarn. Stitch markers. Okay, stitch markers are going to be your best friend whether you're a beginner or you are intermediate or experienced. It doesn't matter. Stitch markers are going to be your best friend. Personally, I like these ones that close off, it closes right in like that. I like these ones the best. You can get round ones, and I know some people have ones that have little gems and stuff on them. I'm basic and I just have these ones. I would recommend keeping tons of them with you, as many as you can, just because they disappear. I don't know how it happens, but I'll set it down next to me and it's gone the next second, so I keep lots of these with me. And then lastly, in my little bag, I have scissors. Always keep my scissors with me just in case I'm changing colors or I'm cutting the end off. It's always helpful to have scissors versus just, I know you can snap a lot of yarn, just find it's a lot easier to have scissors with me because you never know when you're gonna need them. As far as other tips that I have for beginning crocheters, I would say definitely don't give up on yourself. Don't get frustrated. It can be frustrating at times, and I've been there so many times where I'm I don't want to do this anymore. This is super annoying. Just don't give up. It's gonna be frustrating in the beginning, but you're gonna get it, and once you get it, you're gonna be oh, why was I ever frustrated about this? This is so simple. I understand it completely. As far as beginner friendly projects, I would say blankets, very beginner friendly. You're just making a chain and crocheting back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Blankets are one of those things that you do have to count your stitches if you're not being able to see each stitch, especially if you're using thick yarn. You definitely have to count your stitches so you don't get off and the new blanket's all wonky, because I've done that. And it is not fun when you're halfway through a blanket and you're why is the size not even? It's not even all the way around. So, but I would say blankets are definitely beginner friendly. Wash rags, that's how I started learning to crochet, was wash rags. That's all I ever made. when I was like 8 years old. My mom taught me how to do it, and I was like, okay, these are easy. So that's a really good way to start, is with wash rags. They're small and they're single crochets, super beginner friendly. I would say making plushies and like teddy bears and stuff like that is a little bit more intermediate. Definitely feel free to challenge yourself. Like I said, there are some patterns that are just like you're working in rounds, so that can be easier than others. Some are way more advanced and take hours that have parts. It just really depends on what you feel comfortable with. Another tip I would have for beginners, patterns. Finding the right pattern can be really hard. I noticed that a lot of patterns are not written well, and they're confusing, and they use different terms to note their like stitches and stuff, whether they call it a magic ring or a magic loop, or you know, a single crochet, a double crochet, how it's like written in pattern form. It just can get really confusing. So I would definitely try and make sure whatever pattern that you're using, you feel comfortable reading it and it's not like challenging you to read it. A site that I recommend is Ribbler. Ribbler is really good for free patterns. They do pattern giveaways, and there's lots of really cheap patterns on there you can buy, versus Etsy. Etsy is a lot more expensive, and I wouldn't say that the patterns on there are well written. I mean, some of them are good, but it's like a 50-50 toss-up whether you're going to get a good pattern or a pattern that's really hard to read. I know Raverly, I don't know if that's how you say it, but I know that can have some good patterns as well, especially if you're a beginner. And lastly, what I would say is just don't be too hard on yourself when you're crocheting. Just take it with a grain of salt. Like, it's not a big deal if you mess up. We all mess up. You're gonna mess up, but once you get it, you're gonna be really proud of your work, and it's gonna be so much better. Oh, I forgot a big one. If you're a beginner crocheter, you want to make sure that you are not making your stitches too tight. I have done this, and it makes everything so hard. When you're crocheting, you want to have like loose, calm hands. You don't want to hold everything super tight, or I guarantee you it is going to make life horrible. It's going to make everything horrible. And when you're first like learning, you probably will hold it tighter than you're going to hold it, you know, after you've been crocheting for months, and that's just how it goes. But just if you can think about it, try to not hold your yarn tension super tight and make your stitches like somewhat loose. You don't want them super loose, but you don't want them like really tight. So that's a good thing to remember. If you guys have any other questions, or you want to see tutorials on certain stitches or anything like that, feel free to let me know in the comment section or on TikTok. Just feel free to message me. And yeah, that is my beginner-friendly intro for crocheting. I will see y'all next time. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my other tutorials I have. I do have a couple tutorials posted on singles and doubles and triple crochets and how to do a magic ring. I will see y'all next time.